Tommy Robinson.
Mr. Reagan.
There are a few things in the world that piss me off, right? Human trafficking pisses me off. Rape pisses me off. Unjustly imprisoning conservatives for their political beliefs pisses me off. This Tommy Robinson situation really, really pisses me off. And I think that anybody who's aware of this story recognizes this whole situation as a horrible injustice. In short, what happened was there's this activist in England named Tommy Robinson, and he was just sent to prison for 13 months for essentially protesting. And he wasn't really even protesting anything controversial. He was protesting the systematic rape of young white girls by adult Muslim men. But because of the race dynamic, obviously, there is some sensitivity there with regard to the British government. So what exactly happened? Tommy Robinson is a bit of a troublemaker, but he's a troublemaker in a very, very good way. He brings attention to horrible injustices. He's essentially bringing attention to the culture clash in the UK between Muslim immigrants and the natural-born British population. And this is a real concern to have. I mean, it's a legitimate concern. This is not like a hypothetical issue where we think, oh, maybe there could be a culture clash here. No, there is a culture clash. I mean, there are real problems with the mass immigration into the UK from Muslim countries. And not just like little things, really, really bad things. So there are these gangs in Britain, mostly Muslim men, who basically have no respect for white women. And they're what they call grooming these women. So what is grooming? Traditional pedophilic, predatory behavior. Basically, they're befriending underage girls. They recruit younger, cool guys to go and act as the girl's boyfriend, get them comfortable doing somewhat physical things, eventually sexual things. The purpose of increasing the comfort level of these underage girls with regard to sexual activity is to eventually get them involved in prostitution, child pornography, all kinds of vulgar, horrible things. I mean, this is the worst kind of predator. And it's completely racist. I mean, they are specifically targeting white girls, non-Muslim girls. Because in their eyes, the Muslim girls are valuable and the white Western Christian girls have no value. And the British intellectual elite basically says, you're not allowed to identify the race or religion of the perpetrators, otherwise you are a racist. I mean, come on. In England, they're so petrified of white people being racist that they're completely dismissing the unbelievable wave of racism against white people in the UK. So Tommy Robinson is really a hero. He's a sort of like a Robin Hood type character in England. He's going around, despite the fact that the UK government has tried everything it can to shut him up. He still goes out there and he still tries to draw attention to this problem. And it's not just grooming gangs. I mean, it's individual rapists. It's this whole culture, this whole idea that white people are inferior, they're not valuable, white girls can be exploited, whereas we keep our own girls safe and valued. So Tommy Robinson's gone out there and he's protested this and he's drawn attention to it. So what happened recently? Why is he now in jail for 13 months? So he went to the trial of several men who were being tried for these kinds of crimes. And he was, from what I understand, he was reading out news reports about what these men had done. He was reading stuff about them that had already been published in the news, or he was recounting things that had already been established in the news. Primarily because there was some kind of a gag order on this case. It's apparently like a normal thing in the UK to say that reporters aren't allowed to report on a case because it might sway the opinion of the public, which is, in my opinion, completely insane. That's like completely against freedom of the press here in America. But I guess it's okay in the UK because they're crazy. But Tommy Robinson went over there and he reported on it, but he reported on it specifically. He was very careful to only report things that had already been reported. And the reason being is he didn't want to add any new information to the case and therefore be guilty of, somehow manipulating the public in some way or distorting the potential outcome of the case or something like that. Whatever it is that the UK thinks is going to happen from him talking about this. Tommy Robinson was convicted of contempt of court. That was the crime he was convicted of. 13 months in prison for contempt of court. First of all, not only is that just insane for that reason alone, but Tommy Robinson's gone to jail and has been beat up by Muslims in prison for his political convictions, which a lot of people view as anti-Muslim. I think Tommy Robinson seems like a great guy because he's very anti-racist, which I am like completely on board with that. I am anti-racist against blacks, anti-racist against Muslims, and I'm anti-racist against whites. And that's the thing, right? You need to, if you're going to be anti-racist, you need to be anti-racist across the board. And he seems to be. He seems to see that there is a legitimate racism against white people in Britain, and he's against that, which I commend him for. If there's racism against any group that's real and significant and problematic, you need to shut it down. You need to stop it. And that's what he seems to be doing. And I love that. So he's gotten sent to prison for 13 months for essentially trying to draw attention to a horrific problem in Britain. And this is obviously like a case of, you know, a politically partisan judge convicting this guy completely unjustly. So what's the solution for this? I do think that there is a solution. We saw something kind of similar fairly recently with Dinesh D'Souza being targeted by the Obama administration and a leftist judge who decided that he was going to punish Dinesh D'Souza unreasonably for a relatively minor crime. And Dinesh D'Souza points out how absurd the punishment that he received for this crime was in a variety of interviews, and you should check him out. You should watch all of his stuff. Dinesh D'Souza, awesome guy. So what happened with Dinesh D'Souza? He was punished for his crime, but his conviction was eventually overturned in a way. How was it fixed? Donald Trump pardoned him. This was just recently. This was very, very recently. The same thing can happen before Tommy Robinson serves out his entire sentence in Britain. This problem can be solved by the conservatives in Parliament, right? There's a conservative majority in Parliament. They have a lot of power. Theresa May is a conservative prime minister. She could step in. I don't know what the laws are in Britain exactly about this sort of thing, but I imagine there is something that can be done where this case can be looked at, the absolute absurdity of the injustice can be recognized, and Tommy Robinson could be freed by the politicians of Britain. If the politicians of Britain are sitting on their hands doing nothing about this, they are complicit in this total miscarriage of justice. The Queen of England can step in. I don't really know what her powers are, but they seem to be infinite. So go ahead, Queen of England, free Tommy Robinson. Get him out of prison. This is all political nonsense. Normally I close my videos with like this closing thing. I'm not going to say that. You know what I'm going to say? 2 words. Free Tommy.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender until in God's good time, the new world with all its power and might steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old.